Welcome to Literacy Mindset, where education leaders from across the country share strategies for improving K-12 instruction today and preparing for the challenges of tomorrow. The stakes are high. Students are facing new academic demands, and educators are navigating an ever-changing educational landscape. Each episode, we explore the most effective literacy initiatives, innovative tools, and strategies that are reshaping education. Whether you're an educator looking to improve student outcomes or passionate about driving meaningful change in schools, the Literacy Mindset brings you the insights and strategies you need to stay ahead. This is where education leadership meets real-world impact.
All right. Well, welcome back to the Literacy Mindset. Really excited about our episode today to talk with Dr. Gabriel Gutierrez from Hollister School District in California. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Well, we're really excited to have you here, Director of Special Education. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you do, your role, and how you got there.
Yeah, so I'm privileged to serve as the Director of Special Education here at Hollister School District.
Okay.
What I do is support students that have diverse learning needs, work with a range of professionals to meet the needs of the students that enter our doors. I have a background in special education. I started as a school psychologist, and through that led me to where I am today in terms of leading our department. My role entails, collaborating with site principals, with parents, community members, our surrounding districts, just in regards to meeting those needs that students have. We have students that matriculate to the high school, and so we often have conversations with the high school about matriculation. And
Okay.
so my training as a school psychologist has led me to this position, and developing leadership skills through working at the site level has also supported me in this role.
Excellent.
So.
Okay, great. Tell us a little bit about Hollister. Kind of where are you at? I know the great state of California, I get that, but kind of orient the audience to where you're at and the makeup of the district.
Yeah, so Hollister, California is in Northern California. We're in San Benito County. The population is somewhere around 45,000 people or so.
Okay.
So it is a rural area. It's a nice town to live in, and folks sort of get to know each other pretty well.
Okay.
The school district is we're near 6,000 students.
All right.
And we serve, a population that, the majority of the population, we have Latino students, and then our second greatest population is Caucasian students. We have some Filipino students and a small population of African American students.
Okay.
And in terms of special education, we have our population is about 14.5% of the total students. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'm really excited to kind of dive into our conversation today. Clearly, we're going to have a special ed slant on the conversation around literacy, which is really exciting. Mindplay's history has been very much adjacent to the intervention and special ed spaces. Dyslexia, certainly one of the things that we spent a lot of time thinking about, and how to create content and curriculum for that. So let's dive in. Maybe talk to us first a little bit about the types of roles. You sort of mentioned some of the folks that you work with on the periphery, but like on your staff, talk about the types of things of roles that you have in yourself. I know school psychologists, probably some of those.
Yeah. So I would say that, we do have, so in order to be able to provide the services that the students need, we have to have special education teachers that are trained to be able to do inclusive practices in general education, educational specialists that work with general education teachers. They do co-teaching.
Okay.
We have special education teachers on our staff that are more classroom-based teachers, where the students who are in those classrooms are in separate classrooms. And so they have more focused training on supporting students that are struggling a little more with learning, perhaps behavior. And then we also have special education teachers who have, certification and training for meeting the needs of students with more extensive needs and have adaptive skills challenges and need a higher level of support to be independent. And then with respect to the sort of the related services that we work with, we have speech language pathologists
Right.
that support students with their language and speech needs, with their needs related to pragmatics and social skills. School psychologists to determine, recommendations for instruction, for behavior, for mental health. We also have mental health specialists that support students that might need education related to mental health services.
Okay.
Occupational therapists, support our students, and of course, they do sensory assessments and the sensory interventions, fine motor and gross motor skill assessments and interventions as well.
Right.
We have an adapted PE teacher, and then once in a while we'll have a need for physical therapists. But I contract with a physical therapist to come and support students. I think that was. Let me see. I think for the most part those are. And as part of my staff, I have coordinators of special education,
Right.
who are, have their various levels of expertise. I have one of the coordinators who has a strong experience working with non-public schools, residential programs,
Got it.
students who have more intensive behavioral mental health needs, and is also strong with data. I have one of the coordinators who is strong with curriculum and instruction, and was a previous general education teacher. And then I have a coordinator that has a lot of experience with our more extensive students to meet those needs of the teachers and the students in the more extensive programs. And then the other staff member coordinator supports our students who are being included in Gen Ed and in the resource program.
Yeah. Well, the list is exhaustive, right? There's a lot of things that have to happen to make a special education program run in any district of any size. What I love about working closely with special education, in particular in the technology services like we're in, is I feel like special education has really honed in on the idea of personalized learning. Clearly, individualized education plans, right, are a hallmark of special education. But what is it that you have seen in your career working in the SPED side of the world that has helped you understand this personalized need? Every student's a little bit different and kind of needs a different approach, right?
Right. Yeah, I would say that one of the most important parts of when we're looking at IEPs or for planning students' needs is really those assessments that the team does to inform what's the area of disability, and how do those identified areas, those processing areas, behavioral areas, adaptive skills, whatever is addressed in that report, how is that affecting them in the classroom? How is it affecting their educational benefit and their progress? And how do we use those data to create a program which is individualized to that student those needs, and build the program so that they can benefit, they can access their instruction, and so they can be in a place where they're included with their peers.
Right.
Now, it's and that's the goal for everyone, to be included. To the extent that we can, we'd like them to be included with their peers that are non-disabled. But the data drives where we go with those recommendations, and it's important for us to make sure we're connecting those data when we assess the students, so that it makes sense, so that program makes sense, and then we develop goals that we can track and over time to determine progress or lack of progress, and then we reconvene another meeting so that we can get parents' input, get teachers' input. So it's really data driven, utilizing the expertise of those experts that we have on the team, and also considering the parents' input, who are experts in their children at home and can give us another sense of how they're doing.
Right. No, I love hearing data and data driven words, because that's an important part of this. what if we drilled down for a second on the literacy side of that in particular? So kind of walk us through how you guys create sort of a literacy profile of students, assessments that you use,
Right.
all of the data points. What does that look like?
Yes. So prior to doing any evaluation for special education, and this can vary because parents do have the right to request an assessment.
Sure.
But if we're doing as if we're being our goal is to be proactive, and that means that how does that look in the system? So at a school site, the site will conduct screening, screening 3 times a year,
Yep.
and they'll those data will determine who receives an intervention. So prior to us assessing the student, we want to make sure that they are getting interventions. So for literacy, for example, at the elementary level, when they're screened, they use a curriculum called Preventing Academic Failure. It's
Okay.
an Orton Gillingham sort of program, and it's really geared at supporting students to develop, phonological awareness, vocabulary, writing skills. It's an integrated intervention. So we give the students receive their instruction in the classroom.
Right.
Those students that are designated in need of additional support and literacy, for instance, can then get designated to that preventing academic failure intervention,
Okay.
either within the classroom or through a pull-out model. And then those data are tracked. And so what they do with that model is, the intervention teacher and the instructional assistants for that program will take data, and they will take informal measures. They'll do word lists. They do this weekly to determine students' progress.
All
And
right.
then those data then determine where students are in that intervention. So students are moving through levels of those groups as they make progress.
Okay.
But when a student doesn't make progress, then the next step would be to determine, is this intervention working? Have we changed it? Have we adjusted the goals? And if things have been done and the team believes that, we may need to have a meeting, let's bring the parent in, let's bring the teacher in, let's bring some of the other specialists in, and let's problem solve. And then that's where the team then determines whether an assessment should take place to rule out perhaps a suspected disability in reading, for instance. Okay. Now, and then with that, so the goal is really to ensure that the interventions are done, because what we don't want to do is assess a student that hasn't received those interventions or appropriate instruction,
Right.
because then it can lead to, if a student hasn't, for instance, if a kindergarten student has not received, has not understood the sound structure of language, they don't know their letters, they don't know how to blend, they don't know
Right,
their
right, right.
sounds, and we haven't given them that systematic intervention, they can look like they're disabled.
Sure.
For instance, because you can give someone a comprehensive test of phonological processing, and it'll show their phonological awareness skills are low.
Right.
But the interesting thing about phonological awareness that I found as previously being a school psychologist was, and the research suggests is that phonological awareness is a cognitive skill that can be impacted through direct instruction. So
Right.
you give them the instruction, they're learning it, and they can make progress, and then so that's why it's very important that we get those interventions in place first, so that we can rule out that we've provided them with what they need, and that it's possible, given that and the lack of progress, that there may be a suspected disability. And so we do more comprehensive assessments. We do individual academic standardized assessment tools
Okay.
that test their letter knowledge, their sound knowledge, their initial sound knowledge, their the ending sound knowledge, whether they're able to blend, segment, are they able to read the word, and then fluency skills and comprehension skills. So it's really focused. And then and then the school psychologist also does assessments that look at the processing areas related to literacy,
Right.
like the auditory processing skills, visual processing, and long-term memory, and those types of things. And then they take that data together to determine, to make a hypothesis about those data regarding whether or not it's likely that learning challenge is due to a processing deficit.
Right. Okay.
And so then that's where and if it is a case, then that's where we need to look at our interventions and identify, okay, we've done this in general ed. what is it that we need to do when we're looking at the student's program to support, a stronger, more intensive intervention that can meet, that can help them grow. So that's really what. So the student goes through a series of assessments so that it can guide the team in determining the level of intensity that intervention or resource that they're going to have to receive.
Okay, no, that makes sense. When we were talking earlier, we talked a little bit about just the high number of English learners or multilingual students in the district as well. And you kind of hit on, where do you start to understand what might be a disability versus a difference? And you're just kind of talking about sort of the assessment. How do you ensure that you are focused on making sure that you understand when there's a difference versus a disability?
Yeah, and and I would say across, and I would say multiple team members in many schools and districts will say that's a challenge.
Sure.
But I think the way we can the best way to rule out whether it's a disability or difference is ensuring that the instructional components that are needed for multilingual learners are being present in their classrooms, that it's being integrated into the curriculum, and that we're truly doing it with Fidelity.
Right.
And I know Fidelity, when we talk about Fidelity, that's a tough
Heavy
one
word.
because and it's a tough one because we don't monitor the fidelity like we would like to.
Okay.
And but I would say the important part is really determining what data do we have, what information do we have, or what records does the teacher have to show that it's being integrated. Because, well, again, we want to make sure that we've ruled that factor out as opposed to saying that it's a disability. Because you can have a student that perhaps may not be able to do some of the similar things that another student might do that isn't a multilingual learner, but there's other factors that are going on. So I'd say one of the processes that's important is ensuring that our assessment practices really touch on, are we looking at both languages?
Right.
Is a student, how long has a student been, is this a student that's recently arrived? So
Sure.
we need to get multiple indicators, and then really giving students that opportunity to learn, because we know to master academic language can take 5 to 7 years.
Right.
So and then students can pick up basic interpersonal, the BICS, they used to call the BICS, the informal language, within 1 to 2 years. It's just that academic language is a little more difficult to attain. So it's not a special education only issue. It's not a general education only issue. It's a system issue that requires us to work together and really ensure that the instructional supports that are available in the classroom, like that we're developing vocabulary. We're ensuring that students have an opportunity to share their thinking by talking. Oral language practice is huge when it comes to developing language proficiency, and then providing those scaffolds, sentence frames, and then building some context so that students can make sense of those words and be able to recognize them and use them in their daily lives.
Right. No, that's a great point. What do you, are there systematic things or programmatic things that you do a little bit differently across the grade levels? You're a K-8 district, so are there things that happen a little bit different in elementary than in the junior high, at least as it relates to your department?
Yeah. So when we're looking at students that are having difficulties with learning, the measures that we provide are gonna be a little more extensive for our upper grade students.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, a TK student, I know that sometimes we hear from teachers, we want them to write a paragraph in TK, and there are some students that can do it.
Sure.
But that may not be our indicator for determining when there's a need.
Sure.
So I think the measures become a little more structured and a little more comprehensive as students move on through grade levels, requiring a little more, when we're looking at writing, it's not just about fluency of writing, but ideation. How are they integrating vocabulary? How are they integrating their ideas? How are they using the process of writing? And then with literacy, it's more about the comprehension, comprehension of skills, and then sort of working backwards when we do find areas of difficulty as it relates to comprehension. So it's tailored to the areas of need for that grade level.
Okay.
And there are some times where we encounter students that are in middle school that we do have to test back. Then we don't, and those tests indicate that, wow, the student doesn't have like solid early literacy skills. And so some of the measures we use may not be valid for their age group, but at least they give us as informal indicators a place to see where they are. And actually, that came up recently in one of our assessments. We had a student that was in seventh grade who struggled with language skills.
Sure.
And and it was actually more due to the challenges that the parents were seeing in terms of their willingness to have an assessment conducted to determine what the needs were for the student. So it may not be a systematic issue, but it does happen. And there are times when we have students that have, for some reason, fallen through the cracks. That,
Sure.
which is unfortunate. But we try to get in there and provide them with an intervention that is as intensive as possible to get them where they need to be before they matriculate to high school.
Right. Yeah, I think we find, I mean, a lot of times districts will hire us to help in the, fifth, sixth, seventh grade because students are multiple grade levels below in reading. What we find is that a sixth grade teacher, a seventh grade teacher, they were never trained in how to teach foundational reading skills, right? And so it kind of presents this interesting challenge for them. What do you guys do, and how do you support those teachers, when students show up in classrooms like that?
Yes, so I think that, and we see that, I've heard the comment before, like from an upper grade teacher say that, we use reading to learn, and the teaching to read is different, and so usually that's where we kind of see the push towards perhaps we need to look at special education so we can adjust that student's needs. But I would say regardless, so we work with our Ed Services Department, and our Ed Services Department does a pretty good job of working with the site leadership teams to identify what are the trends that are happening at the site at the sites, and then they bring in professional development to support those areas. And sometimes our special education staff also participate in those professional learning opportunities because it is often the case that we have students that are, as I mentioned, that are way below expected, and we're trying to find a way to move them forward. So I would say that, but it is a challenge because we have, as you mentioned, there are teachers that may not have, or maybe they did it years ago, but it's not part of their current program.
Sure.
And then it's, and sometimes because we're focusing on the early intervention, we may not have the same sort of programs available for the middle schools as we do for lower grades.
Got it. Okay. Talk a little bit about technology and its role and influence on interventions. Do you use technology? Do you try and avoid technology?
Yeah,
a lot
we
of different
do.
perspectives.
Earlier I mentioned, that I was a school psychologist, and things have changed since I started in this field. Like I had mentioned prior, we were talking about my role and how I used to work with students that were as a social worker, and we didn't do there was not a lot of technology focused instruction or interventions.
Right.
But the students were able to benefit. Nowadays, though, I would say that some of the technology that we've been seeing, we piloted this year. This program, this curriculum, I don't even know, it's like an intervention program using AI. It's called the Mira.
Yeah. Okay.
And we've been piloting that with some of our students, and we've been finding that it's been helpful to support students with literacy as they're reading aloud, getting feedback from the Amira program, and then guiding them through the steps they need. So that's one of the things that I know that it's been pretty interesting that we've been using this year. To the other programs that we use are, for special education, we have unique learning systems for our students who have more extensive needs. It has, it's the nice thing about unique is that it integrates the standards, but at a modified level. So students are getting access to the standards, to modified standards, alternative standards, and it's allows the teachers to provide direct instruction, and then we use some tablets for the students so they can have more focused lessons based on the data that's collected for them. We used last year, a couple years ago, we were using a program that was geared at developing literacy skills, but we found that the program wasn't meeting the needs that we wanted it to meet, so we ended up moving on from that. But I'd say that teachers, both gen ed and our sped teachers, are integrating technology more now. They see the benefit, and we also see that we can be strategic in our groupings when we're in the classroom, when we can do, perhaps we have some students doing a program for literacy on a laptop while a teacher's doing a lesson with some students that are working on comprehension, and maybe have the interventionist working on like preventing academic failure. So it allows for grouping. But I would say that we do our in collaboration with our Ed Services department, we do look at bringing in tools that where we can integrate technology, and and so that's ongoing.
Right,
I think
it's a
it's
lot
where
of
we are
talk.
now in education, and we actually need to ramp up where we are, man, and take advantage of some of the tools that are available to
Right.
meet the demands of students.
Yeah. Do you find there to be challenges in your TK-8, so you don't have the same maybe high school challenges that exist sometimes with personal devices, but do you guys have challenges with like personal devices and
Yeah.
distractions and stuff like
Well,
that?
students. So I believe our grade 2 through 8 we have one-to-one laptops,
Okay.
and the IT department. So they have to log in, and so the IT department does a pretty good job of, we have the firewalls, and so there on occasion we've had to monitor students when they're looking on sites that they shouldn't be, but the students really can't access too many outside sites that are not appropriate because of the protections that are in place by the IT department.
Okay.
So that's a good thing, and so it allows. The nice thing about that is students can use that laptop during the school day when teachers are structuring interventions and
Right.
lessons, but they also can assign students with tasks at home or during the weekends or during summer. Students take those home as well for additional learning opportunities.
Got it. Okay. Uh, this has been awesome. It's been really fun talking through it. I can't help but think about the technology state that we're in, and AI and just all of the stuff surrounding us right now. So I really like to sort of end our podcast with a future facing question. So I'll ask you a final question. What are the trends that you're seeing now that you think are going to really continue and grow in 5 to 10 years from now? What do you think might be a flash in the pan, or just kind of give us that crystal ball view for Dr. Gutierrez of
Yeah.
5 to 10 years from now?
Well, I mean, I think as in terms of using my lens in special education, one of the things that I would love to see is that we really consider that we create our systems that are inclusive of all students. And so if we do that, not only does it support our students who are in general ed, but it supports students with disabilities, and it gives students an opportunity to interact and really just that it's okay that there are differences. But also, I think with technology, it would allow us to be able to do that, because we're able to use these tools to meet those needs of students that have more intensive needs. Or so I think technology. I look forward to these AI tools and being able to support us in certain areas, and of course ensuring that there's ethical guidelines in terms of the use of those tools. And but I would say that one of my goals for the future in this district, and wherever it is I end up, in my career, is that we're always thinking about inclusion.
Mm.
Where we put students first. The technology or tools that we're using are part of a larger system that we've planned out, so that it's cohesive, and that it's something that we can extend over time. It doesn't just become a one-time use and it's over, but
Right.
it extends our learning, it extends our system so that we can expand our ability to meet the needs of the diverse learning needs of all students. Um, and I think that another thing that I'd like to see is that in this given situation where we're struggling with finding speech language pathologists and special education teachers, is finding a way that we can integrate this technology. And we are in some respects we have virtual SLPs, but I think there's work that can be done there. So I would say stronger tools that can meet those demands
Sure.
of being able to find qualified staff to really support students that are struggling. I think those are the two areas that I would say that using technology to support inclusion, and then using technology to strengthen the workforce, to meet the demands of students.
I love it. Well, that's a great crystal ball. I think there's some good things to work towards there. I really appreciated having you on the show today. Thank you for your time, and good luck in your current endeavors.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in. If you found today's conversation insightful, be sure to subscribe to Literacy Mindset. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube for updates, resources, and to join the conversation. Have a topic you'd like us to explore? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time.